Good morning, everybody. This is the Happy-ology podcast with me, Dr. Charlotte McFarlane, and this is episode 5. Today we are going to be talking about growth. And this is another kind of really big picture idea about life, about how it is that we all are moving forward. My thoughts on, what it is that we're all doing here and how we can live our best lives. So when we talk about growth, I'm talking about personal growth, and I'm talking about being the best version of you. And when I say best version of you, I think that needs a lot of clarification. The best version of you is not, the model in the magazine. It's not the hitting all of the expectations. It's not amassing a fortune or lots of power. It is the very best version of you that you can be. And I think we've touched in the past about the puzzle piece analogy, this idea of, we all have a unique, authentic soul, and we all have a unique, authentic way that we need to show up in order to fulfill, I'm going to say purpose, but purpose isn't necessarily the right. I could unpack a few things about purpose as well, because I think if we think about purpose, we think about things that we should be doing. But purpose to me is really just the role that we play on the planet when we interact with everybody around us. And it's that idea of, we have these puzzle pieces, each of us being a puzzle piece, but all of our puzzle, they're not those nice, smooth, easy puzzle pieces. They've all got bumps and weird little lumpy things all over them because they only fit in a certain way. And the best version of you is the version that shows up fitting in that way and supporting and helping the people around you. Just let me write that down. And so the best version of you can't be defined by anybody else. The best version of you probably can't even be defined by you. The best version of you, to me, and the thing that, because I have a tendency to be a massive overachiever, and so this idea of I need to be the best version of me, but I don't know what that is, can create a lot of stress. But for me, the best version of me is me showing up authentically in the best way that I know how, and in a way that supports, helps, nourishes the people around me while always feeling good about it, always feeling wholesome, always feeling fulfilled in myself. So, I put all those modifiers on there because a lot of us can get caught up in the helping others. And I mean, we are here. We're a big human community, a big human organism of supporting each other. But I spent a lot of years in full-time general practice as a veterinarian, and it ended up being very draining as opposed to fulfilling. And I was helping others all of the time, but it wasn't me showing up as my best self. And at that point, I was doing what I thought was my best self. And so when we talk about growth, one best self used to be, you know, like this, but then we grow and we have more growth and we have a new best self. And then we're going to keep growing and we'll have another best self. And so the nice thing about our best self is we always get to get better. But when we talk about showing up authentically, this is me showing up authentically. This is me, when I write, when I teach, when I coach. This is me showing up authentically, as opposed to, it was not me showing up authentically when I was, in a clinic setting, running around, vaccinating dogs all day long, and especially, because I was, employed, and had a boss and had protocols that I needed to follow. Having anything like a protocol that you need to follow sometimes can be very draining because you are not getting to have the choice of how you show up. And so the authentic self and the best version of you is a really hard thing to define. But, when I try to explain it to people, I say, you're getting close to the authentic self when you feel fulfilled, you feel light, you feel energized. And not that you're doing the easy thing, not that you're doing the fun thing or the thing that you want to do because it's fun, but you're doing the thing that speaks to you on a much deeper level. And so when I coach or when I teach or write, it's fulfilling me on a much deeper level because I feel that I'm, I do feel that I'm helping, or I'm at the very least trying to put a lot of positive stuff out there and positive things for people to work through and experience their own personal growth and accelerate their personal growth and evolve. And for me personally, that's very fulfilling, and I do it always in my own way. And in the last couple of months, I've been focused on, personal example again. In the last few months, I've been focused on growing things and how can I bring my message out to more people. And I've been taking some courses and I've been following some people, and I sort of got wrapped up in this. I should do this. I should do this and the other thing, and I have to do this. And I just got really wrapped up, and I got pulled away from my authentic self, and I started to get really tired and really miserable. And there's this fine line of what is authentic to us versus what are we doing because we think we should or we think we have to. And it's, I believe, a lifelong journey to unpack your authentic self. And I actually believe that, I'm a firm believer in reincarnation and past lives and future lives. And I think in every lifetime, we're just peeling off a layer. and we're getting closer and closer to our authentic self. But that doesn't mean that we can't do a lot of work in our own journey in this lifetime while we're here. And I think that as we're trying to always be our best self, like I said, that best self is evolving because that authentic self is becoming more and more clear. And personal growth is the unpacking of those layers. Personal growth is the discovery. It's the process of discovery of your authentic self and your best version of you. And it's possible I didn't finish my point, but the best version of you is unique to you. It's not the best person or the best version as defined by any other person. And personal growth is a real journey in discovering that and being okay with that and accepting who you are, as opposed, personal growth is accepting who you are and showing up that way proudly, authentically, in a way that is really just going to support and benefit the people around you. And supporting and benefiting isn't the point, but I think it's always the side effect of showing up as your best self. And for me lately, I was talking about I really got pulled away from my authentic self a little bit recently in the way that because I know a fair bit about, who I am and how I like to show up in the world, or how I feel fulfilled when I show up in the world. And, I have this message, I have these ideas that are to be shared. And I did have to start asking myself, how can I help? Every day, how can I help? And that's, and that's because I do feel a lot of fulfillment from helping people. And because we're this puzzle piece and because we connect with everybody around us, maybe the word for you isn't help. Maybe the word is connect. Maybe the word is support. For a lot of people, they use the word serve. I don't like the word serve because it pulls me into a have to. But perhaps for you, that word resonates really well. But for each and every one of us, there's going to be a different word. Maybe it's create. How can I communicate is another one that I use for myself. How can I do the thing that supports the puzzle pieces around me while fulfilling me? And I think the right question, and the question for me has changed over the years. That's part of the growth curve. But the right question will feel right, and it will excite you to think about this question. But of course, I started out talking about growth and got a little bit sidetracked about the authentic self. And I just wanted to talk about how growth happens. So I think a lot of us are familiar with kind of the image of steps, and you start down at the bottom and you get up to the top. And this is, I don't know, I have seen this type of image, with these steps just going up and up and up. I've seen this type of image for everything, personal growth, business growth, any type of growth, phases as an athlete. It's all kind of this idea of this step. And the idea is you hang out at one step and you practice, and then all of a sudden you make this leap. Sometimes called a quantum leap is kind of the wording that I have seen a lot in the personal growth space. you jump up and you make this leap and you up level. And all of a sudden then you're at this next level and you're showing up not differently, but more than you were before. You're showing up as something more than what you were before. And then you hang out there for a little while, and then you jump up again, and you hang out, and you jump up again, and you hang and you jump, and you keep going up and up these steps, and until you reach the top. And everybody always draws this with a top, but the truth is there is no top. It's just that the paper runs out of space. So growth is infinite, and we can just keep growing. And I think we have to keep growing. I think if we stop growing, then there's no point. So each and every one of us, if we are going to try to or endeavor to show up as our best self, we need to have an eye to growth. They are distinctly related. But growth is not necessarily, I think, what people picture. So we've all been to school. We all know that you show up, you sit at the desk, you pay attention to the teacher for how many hours, you try to stay awake, and she teaches, this and that and the other thing, and you go for a week, you go for 2 weeks, you go for 3 weeks, and then there's a test. And if you've been doing it right and paying attention to what she's written down, you will pass the test. And then there's another test, and another test, and another test. And then all of a sudden it's the end of the year, and you get to go into the next grade. So it's this very linear, I show up, I do this little piece, I do this little piece, I do this little piece, and then there's a bigger piece. And then I do a bunch of little pieces, and I learn the material for the next test. And then I learn, and then there's a test. And if I do all of the tests, then I will be in the next grade. And we know exactly how it's going to be, because it's, I don't know, it's 10 months of school, maybe. it's however many months, or if you're in university, it's one semester of classes and then the test. And you either up level to the next grade or you don't. And 99% of the time you're going to get into the next grade. And so we have this maybe misconception that the growth ladder, the growth kind of staircase, I picture it as a staircase. It's just, we picture that there's all of this physical stuff we need to do. We need to pay attention to the lesson and write the test, and pay attention to the lesson and write the test. And if we tick all of the physical boxes, then we'll get into the next level. And so, personal example. If I want to, what's a good example? So I used to run marathons, and to run a marathon is, a lot of us think it's physical, and there is a lot of physical training. You go out and you run 2K, and then you run 5K, and then you run 10K, and then you run 15, 25, and then 50. And you just keep building your stamina. You increase your physical ability to do the task. But at a certain point, running is not physical. It's mental. So, and maybe if you're a runner, you've heard this before. Running a marathon or running marathons, there's a physical component, but it's 90% mental. to get yourself up every day, to keep moving your legs, even when you're at 25 kilometers and you're exhausted and you need to keep and you've only gone halfway, you have another 25 kilometers to go. That's a mental game. And you know, with running, I think the mental game is fairly simple. Not easy, but fairly simple, because if you can mentally get through 2K, then you start trying for 5K, and when you can mentally get through 5K, then you go for 10. And the physical and the mental come along at the same time, because you can't complete your 10K training run without completing your 10K mindset training. And so you get to have this mental development along with the physical development. And, if we look at the school example, maybe there is some there too, where, you need to learn all the lessons in order to be able to write the tests and in order to be able to pass the exam at the end of the year in order to up level. But a lot of us just look at it very, very physically. And it's kind of like, if I check all the boxes, if I run the 2K and I run the 5K and I run the 10K and I just keep going, I'll be able to run the 50K, no problem. And in a simplified version, yeah, totally. The problem is that in life, personal growth and any type of growth is usually not laid out in this really linear way. I mean, maybe if you're talking about promotions at work, but even then, people get passed over. The new guy comes in and he gets promoted before the guy who's been there for 20 years. And what's the difference? It's not years, it's not time spent. It's this mental growth component. And so if we think about the staircase again, there's always going to be kind of like a horizontal plane, and then there's going to be a vertical jump. And we all want the jumps. The jumps are the cool part. The jumps are where we can say, hey, yeah, that was awesome. I used to be there, but now I'm all the way up here. And we always measure things vertically. I'm just gonna, if you're watching on the video, there's some really interesting looking drawing that I did there. So when we're talking about growth, though, we're always looking at the vertical, and we're always looking at how high can I get? How high can I get? And that's cool. That's still the goal. I mean, you want to keep upping the best version of you, and you want to see how high you can get. But a lot of us get frustrated because we forget about the horizontal shift that has to occur. We totally, we ignore this part. We don't think about it. Nobody talks about it. It's not cool. No one can see what's going on, all of the little shifts that we're making in the horizontal plane in order to get the big vertical jump. And what's actually going on in this horizontal plane, this is personal growth. This is, personal growth to me is this growth that you can't see, but without doing the hard kind of unseen horizontal movement, you can't get the big vertical jumps. So, moral of the story is personal growth often doesn't look like you're doing anything. And it can often feel stagnant. And sometimes it feels really awful because you want to be way up at the top. You want to have made all of your vertical jumps, but you're stuck at the horizontal personal growth phase. And in my experience, the only way to get high vertically on the growth scale to get the really big kind of notable shifts, the physical shifts that people can see externally. The only way to get those really significant external shifts is to do all the hard work of putting in the unseen internal shift. And personal growth is hard. And it's a slog. It's you learning the little lessons in school. It's showing up every day. And it's showing up every day as your best self and asking always, was I my best self? And not to beat yourself up or disparage if you had a day where you didn't show up as your best self. But to look at it and say, if I did it all again, is there anything that I would do differently? And there's a balance there. There's always a balance between kind of accepting ourselves and how we are in the moment, but then looking at what were the lessons that I learned? How can I implement this in the future? How can I show up as my best self? Not someone else's best self, but how can I show up as my best self tomorrow? How can I show up as my best self the day after that, the day after that, the day after that? And part of that is a conscious effort in how we're acting and how we're doing. Although the more we're connected with our authentic self, the more easily our authentic self will flow out, and so the less effort is required. But yeah, I mean, when you're faced with decisions on how to act, sometimes you do need to go in and make the effort to say, I'm going to do the maybe harder thing that's more authentic. To show up as our best self. What was I going to say? To show up as our best self is effort, but it's also understanding. It's gratitude, and it's releasing. And so, what I really want to say with that is, when you are down at the start of your growth steps, that's where you are. That's you in the now. And you're going to put effort in every day on that horizontal plane. And when you put, when you put the effort in, but then you go back and you sort of say, and you look at the lessons, you're going to increase your understanding of who you are and who you show up as. And gratitude is so important, because it can be so easy as you're learning more and more about yourself. I mean, usually we learn more from the hard lessons, from the tough lessons, than we do from the easy lessons. You don't learn everything if things just go smooth and there's no hiccups ever. You learn from the hiccups. And so it's important to have gratitude, so that when a hiccup happens and you learn from it, you can say, instead of going and beating yourself up and saying, oh my goodness, there was a hiccup and I should have done this and this and this, you can be grateful and say, okay, hey, there was a hiccup, but I learned. And I'm so grateful that I had the hiccup, and that now I know better, and now I'll do better. And every time there's a hiccup, I mean, to me, it's a major jump. If you can learn the lesson from the hiccup, or from the bad thing, from whatever happened, if you can learn the lesson, it's gonna push you. So it's going to really accelerate that horizontal personal growth shift so that you can get to the vertical jump even faster. And the biggest thing is, right, I guess, yeah, when we talk about releasing, when we talk about releasing, we do have to release our ties to the past, like we were talking about yesterday, because we, in order to make a vertical jump, we have to do the horizontal work to get to the jump. And if we are tied, if we are still holding on to things in the past, we can't move forward. We can't continue to grow because we're always going to be held back to who we were in the past, and we're never going to up level. I mean, maybe we'll up level a little bit, but can you imagine if you had a tie to something way down at the bottom of your growth ladder, and you were making these huge leaps and you were doing really, really well, but you were still tied down to this tether at the bottom. It's going to make going forward, it's going to make growing exponentially harder. And at some point, I think it's going to pull you back and you're just going to topple. And so as we can see these, I like the vision or the imagery of, this tether pulling you back. And as you're trying to climb, it's getting exponentially tighter and tighter and tighter. And if you can recognize when things are getting tighter and tighter and tighter and look at the tether and say, where is that tether attached to? Where is that anchor, if you want to use an NLP term, and release yourself from it, all of a sudden your growth is just going to skyrocket. It's just going to get easier and easier. The more of these anchors, the more of these ties and tethers that we can release. And to me, that's the secret to personal growth. I mean, that's the secret to success. That's the secret to doing everything that you have ever wanted to do in life, is releasing the old things and continuing to learn, continuing to do the hard work of the personal growth in the moments so that you can, and I call my coaching acceleration coaching because this is all we do. You can accelerate faster and faster and faster so that you make these vertical shifts faster and faster and faster, meaning that in the span of your 80-year lifetime, you can get so high because this growth curve is infinite. The only thing that holds us back, I believe, from, the only thing that holds us back from infinite growth is that we don't have infinite time. We don't. And that is why I believe in past lives, because I think we have to keep coming back to the lives to keep doing the work so that we get more time, we get infinite time, by having the ability to, come onto the planet as many times as we need. And with each visit, we're tasked with clearing out a layer, with learning a new lesson. And what the ultimate goal of that is, nobody knows, but, I think we owe it to ourselves. Even if we don't owe it to anybody else, I mean, we owe it to ourselves to become the best version of ourselves, which means that all of this hard work is, I think the reward at the end, even the reward as you're going, is, it's just indescribable. I mean, it's so fulfilling, it's so wholesome, and the more we can undo the tethers too. I mean, I think that, the ultimate goal is really to be living as the authentic self. And like I said, I mean, that's a journey, and I think that that's a journey that is going to take 1,000 years to really unpack who is our authentic self. But like we talked about yesterday, if we can engage fully in the authentic self, and if we can have all of our satisfaction and confidence come internally, I mean, we never need to fear. We never need to experience any negative emotion. And that's, I mean, that's the goal, isn't it? That's something that all of us could list as wanting, is to feel totally, fully fulfilled and loved at all times. And we're human, so that's not the expectation. And the always the kernel of yin within yang within yin within yang. In this lifetime, I mean, we can't have that goal of always feeling wonderful and fulfilled, because if we do that, then we stop growing. So again, quite a fair bit, I think, to mull over and to think about regarding personal growth. And yeah, and I think if you want more talks about personal growth and about this journey we're on, there's lots of old blogs at the Happy-ology.com site, or you can find them on the Facebook page, and I'm continuing to write new blogs, so that's always there. And check out some of the coaching too, because I'm moving into, and have done a bit in the past, but I'm working to do more and more coaching sessions that are like Facebook Live, so that you can watch and you can see what we do, because I think what I do and how I view this stuff, is so different from anything else that I've seen out there. I mean, it's all the same, I think, but yeah, there are, I believe, some, I'm not going to say tricks, but there are some tools that we can use to accelerate this when we're ready, when we acknowledge that we need to look into this tough stuff, and that a lot of personal growth, it can hurt, because to release, we were talking yesterday about releasing, as opposed to forgetting. And when you release, you have to look deep into the emotions. And so, a lot of personal growth work can feel like you're going backwards, can feel like you are not as, can feel like you're getting further and further away from this, joyful, totally fulfilled version of you, because you're going back and you're reliving, all of the fear, all of the grief, all of the sadness, anxiety, all of the junk that you lived and you sort of tucked away and didn't address in the moment. We have to go back and we have to look at it in order to release it. And so, again, personal example, people, because I write a blog called Happy-ology, and because I introduce myself as a happyologist, it doesn't mean that I am this eternally joyful, maybe kind of insufferably happy person all the time. I have a lot of dips, and I spend a lot of time internally looking at hard stuff. And because I know that it has allowed me to keep going up and keep going up, and the joy that I feel now is, more and more and more internal, and is more and more solid, and is much more fulfilling than it was when I was way back at the beginning of my journey. And I'm a happyologist because I look intensely and I study, and I keep studying. I don't think I have all of the answers. I certainly don't have the answer for being happy all the time, but I have the answers for myself, for being content all the time. And I have learned a lot, and I'm now sharing it here. So come hang out with us, please, and let me spill my authentic self all over you, so that I can fulfill, what I feel is my puzzle piece journey, and come and lock your puzzle piece with mine. It sounds so silly, but I mean that's the human organism. That's the human community. Is we're all going to be connected, and come and connect, and I would love if you came and connected with us, and yeah, and please, keep listening to the podcast. Please keep sending in your feedback, and leaving reviews, and telling your friends, and let's spread this, and let's get everybody on this personal growth track, so that we can all keep accelerating and finding our best versions of us and our best lives. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much. And I will see you tomorrow.